The first time Caleb Ward begged God out loud was not in a church, not on his knees, not with folded hands like his mother had taught him. It was in the barn, at dusk when the dust hung heavy in the air and the cattle had gone quiet, and the sound tore out of his chest before he could stop it. Please, he whispered into the wood and hay and old iron. The word sounded wrong in his mouth, like it didn't belong to a man built the way he was broad-shouldered. Sun-scorched, hands cracked from rope and labor. He hadn't meant to say it. It came anyway. Please, because the doctor's voice still echoed in his head, flat and careful, like a man tiptoeing around a corpse. Because the word infertile had landed like a branding iron, hot and permanent. Because every dream he'd ever had of a boy running the fence line, of a daughter perched on the corral rail swinging her legs, had collapsed all at once, leaving a hollow so loud it roared. Caleb pressed his forehead to a post and stayed there until his breath steadied. Out here, no one could see him. No one had to know. Shame, he'd learned young, was something you buried deep and quiet. Like a dead calf behind the far trees, the town of Red Willow had a way of noticing things, though. It noticed when a man stopped lingering near the schoolyard fence on his way to the feed store. It noticed when he didn't show up at the 4th of July picnic, where children ran between legs sticky with lemonade. It noticed when the Ward Ranch stayed unchanged year after year, no toys in the yard, no small boots by the door. Folks didn't say anything outright. They didn't have to. Pity hung in the air thicker than summer heat, and Caleb felt it on him every time he rode into town. He learned to keep his eyes down, his words few. Men like him were supposed to carry on names, not end them. Supposed to plant something that grew. Every night, the quiet of his house Preston, and every morning he woke with the same thought pounding behind his ribs. You failed at the one thing that mattered. When the letter arrived from the county clerk about the foreclosure hearing and old debt, bad timing. One more wait, he didn't even feel surprised. Life, apparently, was done being gentle with him. It was the storm that brought her. Not the dramatic kind with thunder cracking the sky, but a steady, soaking rain that turned the roads into mud and forced people to stop pretending they were in control. Caleb saw the truck first tilted wrong on the shoulder near the cottonwoods, hazard lights blinking weakly like a distress signal. He pulled his horse up short, rain plastering his hat to his head, and watched a woman climb out. One hand braced on the door, the other protectively curved over her belly. Even from a distance, it was unmistakable, pregnant. The sight hit him so fast he actually sucked in air. His first instinct was to look away. His second was anger at the world, at God, at the unfairness of it all. And then she slipped in the mud, a small sound escaping her, and instinct took over. He was off the horse and at her side in seconds, hands hovering, unsure where to touch. Up close, she smelled like rain and soap, her hair dark and heavy against her coat, her face pale but determined. "Easy," he said, his voice rough. "I've got you." She looked at him then, really looked, and there was something in her eyes that stopped him cold, not weakness, but grief worn smooth by time. "Truck's dead," she said. "I was trying to make it to Red Willow before dark." Her voice wavered just a little at the end. He nodded, already taking in the flat tire, the mud. "You're not going anywhere in this," he said. "My place is close." The word close was a lie. It was a mile off, but he didn't correct himself. She hesitated, fingers tightening on the fabric over her stomach. "I don't want to be a bother." He almost laughed. Bother, if only she knew. "You won't be," he said. "I promise." The house felt different with her in it. Caleb noticed it immediately, the way sound changed, the way the air seemed warmer, even though the fire was low. She sat at his table wrapped in a blanket while he made coffee, his movements stiff and self-conscious. He hadn't had a woman in this space since before the diagnosis, before everything went quiet. Her eyes tracked him as he worked, curious but polite. "I'm Anna," she said eventually. "Anna Keller." The name rang a faint bell. He poured the coffee, slid a mug toward her. Caleb Ward, that one she recognized. Everyone did. She smiled, small and tired. "The ranch," he nodded. Silence stretched, not uncomfortable but heavy with unsaid things. She sipped the coffee and sighed softly. "Thank you," she said. "I didn't know what else to do." He watched her hands as she held the mug, the way they trembled just slightly. "You're welcome," he replied. He wanted to ask about the baby, about the father, about where she was going. He asked none of it. Some stories announced themselves when they were ready. Instead, he asked, "You hungry?" Her face softened. "I didn't realize it until you asked," she said. But yes, he found himself smiling before he could stop it. Later, when the storm had settled into a quiet patter and she slept on the couch, one hand curved over her belly even in rest, Caleb sat at the kitchen table and stared into the dark. He felt like a trespasser in his own home, like the universe was playing some cruel joke by placing this miracle, this reminder of everything he couldn't have under his roof. And yet, beneath the ache, there was something else, a pull, a sense that the story he'd been telling himself, that everything was already over, might not be finished after all. He clenched his fists, jaw tight. Wanting, he knew, was dangerous. Hope even more so. Morning light revealed more than the night had. Anna moved carefully, like someone used to making herself small. She insisted on helping with breakfast despite his protests. Her laughter brief but genuine when he burned the toast. Over eggs and bread, she told him pieces. Widow. Her husband had died in a grain elevator accident months before she even knew she was pregnant. The baby was the last thing he'd left her, she said, her voice steady though her eyes shone. She was heading to her sister's place 2 towns over. But pride and bad luck had stalled her on the road. Caleb listened, his chest tight. Widow, pregnant, alone, each word landed with weight. He told her nothing of his own story, not yet. When she asked if she could use his phone to call for a tow, he nodded, then watched as her shoulders slumped when no one answered. "Roads to bad," she murmured. He cleared his throat. "You can stay another day," he said. "Till it clears." Relief flickered across her face, followed quickly by something like guilt. "Are you sure?" He thought of the foreclosure notice folded in his pocket, of the barn where he'd begged God for mercy. "Yes," he said, and for the first time in a long while, he meant it. By the second night, the town was already whispering. Word traveled faster than rainwater through dirt. A woman at the Ward place, pregnant, no less. Caleb felt the looks when he rode into Red Willow for supplies, felt the questions burning holes in his back. He kept his head high anyway. Let them talk. Anna, unaware of the stir she caused, spent the afternoon walking the edge of the pasture, marveling at the openness of it all. "It's beautiful," she said when he joined her. "Lonely," he corrected before he could stop himself. She glanced at him, thoughtful. "Lonely doesn't have to be permanent," she said. The words echoed long after she'd gone back inside. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Caleb lay awake listening to the house breathe, to the soft creak of boards, to the distant lowing of cattle. He thought of Anna's hand over her belly, of the life growing there, undeniable and unstoppable. He thought of his own body, branded deficient by science and silence. The shame rose up, familiar and choking. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and sat there in the dark, head in his hands. This was dangerous territory. He knew it. Caring led to wanting, and wanting led to pain. And yet he exhaled slowly. Something had shifted. The house no longer felt like a tomb. It felt alive. In the days that followed, routine wrapped itself around them like a fragile truce. Anna helped where she could, folding laundry, sweeping, stopping when her back ached. Caleb found himself watching out for her, without thinking, moving tools out of her path, steadying her on uneven ground. They talked in the evenings, about small things at first. Books she loved, the way he'd learned to ride before he could read. Laughter came easier than either expected. And beneath it all, an awareness hummed, quiet but insistent. One afternoon, as they sat on the porch watching the sun dip low, Anna spoke the thought that had been circling between them. "People are going to talk," she said softly. He didn't pretend not to understand. "They already are," he replied. She nodded. "I don't care," she said. Then, after a pause, "But you might." He turned to her then, really looked at her, the strength in her posture, the vulnerability she didn't bother hiding. "I care about the truth," he said, "not the noise." Her eyes searched his, as if weighing something heavy. It was 3 days later, after a visit from the bank man and another sleepless night, that the words finally broke free. They stood in the barn, dust motes floating in the light, the same place where he'd begged God for mercy. Anna had followed him out, concern etched on her face. "Caleb," she said, "what's wrong?" He laughed, short and bitter. "How much time do you have?" She didn't answer with words. She just waited. And so he told her about the doctor, about the word infertile, about the shame that had wrapped itself around his life like barbed wire. His voice shook despite his efforts to steady it. When he finished, he felt hollowed out. Exposed, he waited for pity, for discomfort, for her to step back. Instead, she reached out, slow and careful, and took his hand. "You are not broken," she said simply. The certainty in her voice cracked something open in him. He swallowed hard. "I am," he said. "Where it counts." She shook her head. "You think a man is only what he can make with his body?" She asked quietly. "Then you haven't been paying attention to the rest of you." Silence fell, thick and charged. That was when the thought took shape, terrifying and impossible and suddenly unavoidable. The way her presence had filled his house, the way the town already whispered, the way the bank deadline loomed, and the way a family, a real, visible family, could change everything. The way he wanted, fiercely, to protect her and the child she carried, even knowing it wasn't his. The words climbed up his throat, burned there. He tried to swallow them back, failed. "Marry me," he said. The barn seemed to hold its breath. Her eyes widened, shock giving way to something else, understanding, maybe. He rushed on, shame flooding him. "I know how it sounds. I know it's wrong to even ask. But listen to me. People will stop talking. The bank," his voice broke. He forced it steady. "Please help me bury my shame," he said, the plea raw and unguarded. "And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you and that child never regret it." The last word fell into the quiet like a dropped coin. Anna stared at him, one hand unconsciously covering her belly. The weight of what he was asking pressed in on them both. Outside, a horse stamped, impatient. Inside, two broken lives hovered on the edge of something neither had planned. She took a slow breath. "You're asking me to tie my life to yours," she said. "For reasons that aren't love." He nodded. Yes, he didn't try to dress it up. He couldn't. "And if I say no?" she asked. He met her gaze, steady despite the fear clawing at him. "Then I'll fix your truck," he said. "I'll see you safely to your sister's, and I'll wish you well." The truth of it hurt, but it was clean. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, very softly, "I need time." Relief and dread tangled in his chest. He nodded again. "Take it." As she turned to leave the barn, she paused. "Caleb," she said. He looked up. "You don't need burying," she added, "but we'll talk." And then she was gone, leaving him alone with the dust and the echo of his own heartbeat, wondering if he'd just asked for salvation or signed his heart's death warrant. Anna did not sleep that night. She lay on the narrow bed in the spare room, one hand resting on the rise of her stomach, feeling the baby shift and roll as if it, too, sensed the weight of what hung in the air. Caleb's words replayed over and over, not the proposal itself, but the way he'd said please like a man stripped of every defense. She had been proposed to once before, under a summer sky with laughter and promises that had felt solid then. Love had come easily that time. What Caleb was offering now was something far stranger and heavier. Shelter instead of romance, loyalty instead of desire, a shared lie meant to quiet the world. And yet, beneath the practicality of it, she had felt something else, something dangerously close to tenderness. She turned onto her side, staring at the wall, and wondered when her life had become a series of impossible choices. By morning, Red Willow had sharpened its curiosity into judgment. When Anna walked into town with Caleb to retrieve the last parts for her truck, conversations dipped and eyes followed. A woman from the bakery smiled too widely. An older man tipped his hat at Caleb with a look that said he'd already decided how the story went. Anna felt her cheeks burn, but she lifted her chin. She had survived worse looks at her husband's funeral, survived whispers about how soon grief should end. Still, when they reached the feed store and a woman muttered, "That's her," under her breath, something inside Anna snapped tight. Caleb's hand brushed her back, steady and grounding. "Ignore them," he murmured. She nodded, surprised by how much the small gesture steadied her. It struck her then that marrying Caleb wouldn't just protect him from shame. It would pull her into it, entangle her with a man the town already watched too closely. She wasn't sure if that scared her or comforted her. That afternoon, the bank man returned. Anna heard the voices from the porch, clipped and polite on one side, strained on the other. She didn't mean to listen, but the words carried. Deadline, final notice. She pictured Caleb alone after she left, the ranch swallowed by debt, the land sold off piece by piece. When the door closed and his boots retreated toward the barn, she stood there, heart pounding. She had told herself she needed time. But time, she was learning, was a luxury neither of them had. She found him by the fence line, staring out at the fields like a man memorizing something he might lose. "Caleb," she called. He turned, hope flickering, and quickly masked. "I've thought about what you asked," she said. He nodded, jaw tight, and the wind tugged at her hair. "I won't marry you today," she said, and saw the flicker die. Then she continued, steadying herself. "But I won't say no either." His brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" She swallowed. "It means if we do this, it won't just be a cover. I won't live a lie every day of my life. If I marry you, it has to be real in the ways that matter: respect, honesty, kindness. No pretending behind closed doors." He stared at her, the weight of her terms settling in. "I can do that," he said finally, voice low. "I swear it." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then I'll stay," she said. "And we'll see." The town took the news like dry grass to flame. Engagement rumors flared within days, fed by a ring Caleb purchased with money he couldn't spare and slid onto Anna's finger with hands. That shook only a little. The courthouse wedding was small, quiet, almost painfully so. No white dress, no flowers, just two people standing before a judge, who looked at them with curiosity sharpened by the bride's belly. When the words were spoken and the papers signed, something unexpected happened. Anna felt a loosening in her chest, as if a knot she hadn't known she carried had eased. Caleb, standing beside her, felt it too, though he didn't yet have a name for it. They walked out as husband and wife into a town that buzzed with speculation, neither entirely certain what they'd just begun. Marriage did not soften the nights right away. They learned each other carefully, like people navigating a dark room. Caleb slept on the edge of the bed, rigid, afraid of crossing an invisible line. Anna noticed and finally laughed, the sound surprising them both. "You can relax," she said. "I won't break." He exhaled, embarrassed, and shifted closer, heat radiating between them without touch. Days filled with work and preparation, repairs to the house, plans for the baby, quiet meals that slowly grew more companionable. Caleb attended doctor's appointments with her, sitting stiffly in plastic chairs, learning to listen to a heartbeat that wasn't his but was becoming, in every way that counted, part of his life. The first time he felt the baby kick under his palm, tears blurred his vision before he could stop them. Anna said nothing, just covered his hand with hers and let him have the moment. But lies have a way of demanding payment. The baby came early, on a night when the sky cracked open with thunder and rain turned the yard to mud. Panic stripped everything down to instinct. Caleb drove too fast, cursed too loud, held Anna's hand until his knuckles went white. When the baby's cry filled the delivery room, something inside him broke wide open. A girl, dark-haired, furious at the world. The nurse placed her in Anna's arms. Then, after a pause, in his. He looked down at her tiny face and felt a certainty so fierce it scared him. "Mine," his heart said, without hesitation. And with that certainty came terror. How long could a man live on borrowed truth? The truth clawed its way out months later, carried by malice and carelessness. A drunken cousin, a whispered argument. The word infertile spat like an accusation. The town's curiosity curdled into outrage. Caleb came home to find Anna on the porch, pale and shaking, the baby wailing in her arms. "They know," she said. His chest hollowed. He didn't ask how. "I'm sorry," he said, the words useless and heavy. She looked at him then, eyes bright with unshed tears. "Are you?" she asked. "Sorry you asked me? Sorry we tried?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then said the only truth that mattered. "No," he said. "I'm sorry I didn't trust love to be enough." Silence stretched between them, thick and dangerous. The town demanded answers. The bank threatened again. Shame rose like a tide, familiar and merciless. Caleb stood in the barn one last time, the place where it had begun, and felt the old urge to beg. Instead, he walked back to the house. Anna met him at the door, eyes searching. "I won't leave," she said before he could speak. "Not because I have nowhere else to go. Because I choose this." Something inside him steadied. He took her face in his hands, careful, reverent. "I love you," he said, the words finally free of fear. She exhaled, a sound between laughter and a sob. "I know," she said. "I think I always did." They faced the town together, faced the bank, faced the truth. Not all battles were won. The ranch survived, smaller but still standing. Some people never forgave. Others learned. But in the quiet moments when the baby slept between them, when laughter filled the house that once echoed with emptiness, Caleb understood something simple and radical. Shame only buried what you let stay dead. Love, once named, had a way of bringing things back to life.